Thank you, Bernie. It's good to be here. I would like to mention too, the reason I put the pictures of those modules, two were the oral language development 1 and 2, and also the early math and the early science, because this presentation blends some key concepts for all 4 of those. Even I did include some from the oral language development 2, which is digging deeper on a few of those things, and I brought some samples of some materials to show you how to really utilize these in the classroom with the young ones. So what this is today is we're going to really dig into the base of oral language development and how that really sets that base, that foundation for kids to progress in vocabulary and literacy, comprehension that's needed for writing. All of that comes from that base in oral language development. It comes from those rich interactions that happen in those conversations. And how do you do that? How do you really bring that to life? And that's what the whole purpose of this, what it's all about, how to get that into more of that instructional type realm to benefit kids. So, and then particularly we're talking about 2 important content areas, mathematics and also science. So we're going to really jump into that and give you some really practical type ways that you can do this, that we know it's true because we've used this in research. And this pulled together these modules, the best of the research in early childhood from all different fronts. And so we pulled this together in these modules. So they're terrific. If you want to go to the Schenker Institute website, look under resources, pull those up and really check those out. And there are other resources too at that website. That's a really excellent one. So, okay, let's get into the oral language foundation part. First of all, we have some apples here. We're going to give you an apple. If Vicki would hand out an apple if you didn't get one already. And I would like you to jot down the things that come to your mind, the memories that you have when you think of the word apple. Now, it may not be relating to a piece of fruit. It may be relating to something else that apple comes to mind. So just take, 30 seconds or so and just jot down some things that come to your mind. Does everyone have something that came to mind? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let me hear you share out what are some things that came to your mind. Let's just think of a list of these. What do we have?
An apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Right, sayings like that. Excellent, yeah. Anyone else? Apple pie, especially right after lunch, with some whipped cream and ice cream on top. Yes, that would have been on my husband's list first thing. Yeah, anything else?
Beatles.
Yeah, right. Apple computers, technology, like Apple computer. Yes.
I know this is crazy, but on an episode of The Bionic Woman, she was a teacher.
Yeah.
At the beginning of every year, she would break an apple in half with her hands.
Yeah.
Like instill respect and fear at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Right. I do. As you're talking, that picture is in my head with her cute little outfit on and the red, white, and blue. Yeah, exactly. What else?
Red, green, yellow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Apple for the teacher.
Cycles development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cycles. The Johnny Appleseed
Uh-huh.
story, planted all the trees, right?
Yeah. The life cycle of the apple tree. Anything else? What was that?
Eating apples.
Uh-huh.
Apples.
Going to the orchard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even the smell. And when you remember that, do you remember going to the apple orchard and you smell that smell? You may smell some rotten apples in there too. So you have a mix of those smells, or cider when you go into an apple orchard and they're making cider. So the smells are part of that memory too. A few more.
Canning.
Canning. If you had that experience of canning apples, preserving. Apples. Anything else? What was that? Uh-huh. Like a whole bushel of apples. All right. Less time if you want to shout it out.
Yummy.
Or caramel apples, maybe. Okay. So some things that came to my mind. I thought of New York. I was in New York recently, and the Big Apple, right? Or apple pie, rotten apple. You know, you see it sometimes walking along the street, an apple core, picking apples. So, and kids eating apples. So all these things come to mind. Well, I think maybe you have. I don't know. Did they get one of these knowledge of literacy paper? If you take a look at that, this is in the preface for Literacy Ladders. So if you pick up this publication in the back, it's also in here too. It's so very good.
Also downloadable off of the Shanker Institute website.
Yeah, so if you want to share this with any of your other colleagues that aren't here. Here it is. It says the core definition of a word is only a tiny fragment of the meaning that makes it useful in understanding language. Neuroimaging confirms that the full meaning of a familiar word extends broadly through the mind, including associations to every trace that your experience with that word or its concept has left in your memory. For instance, your full knowledge of the word apple extends to the traces of your memory of the many apples in your life and how they looked, felt, tasted, smelled, and sounded, like when you bite into it, drop it, slice it, of where you were and what else or who else was there with each apple, of picking apples, peeling apples, bobbing for apples, of cider, apple pie, caramel apples, and ward-off salads, of the apple trees, teacher's apples, the poison apples. Remember that from Snow White? Of rotten apples, apple-cheeked, apple a day, the Big Apple of Adam and Eve, William Tell, George Washington, Steve Jobs, the Beatles, and so on. Many of these were mentioned by you. The more strongly or frequently any such association has been tied to the apples in your life, the more strongly it dominates your overall concept of an apple. But all of your experiences, be they direct or linguistic, are there. They're all waiting to be used in making sense of apple the next time you see it or hear it. And as we think about that, we're thinking about how kids, when they have these experiences with words, these are all going into their memory, all these different contexts, that we are providing these experiences for kids, and we're talking about these experiences. We're sharing a book, maybe a picture book, a song with these type words, and we're talking about it, interacting with it. All of these help them in deepening. It's broad, it's giving them the breadth and depth of these words that's forming that base that will help them to comprehend. And so that's what we're getting at here. So this oral language development base, we know that the more that kids know about language, the better they are equipped in succeeding in reading. As I've shared with you, it's these interactions with responsive adults and peers, and it's using language. I know sometimes I go into classrooms. My job now, I will go into classrooms, mostly supervising pre-service teachers. That's what I do a lot these days. And so I go into hundreds of classrooms every year. And what really saddens me is I'll go into a classroom, and sometimes the whole time I'm there, I'm seeing kids separated. And I'm talking kindergarten, first, second, third grade that I'm in. I see kids separated at these little desks, and they're doing a worksheet. They'll do a worksheet. They have vocabulary worksheets. And they're not talking about, the room isn't abuzz with talking about experiences or working on projects where there's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of worksheets. And I just walk away and I think, wow, they're missing the richness of our language in this whole experience. And then we wonder why the test scores aren't showing growth here. So a lot of it, we have to make sure we're providing some interactions, these rich interactions for kids. We know that optimal language development occurs when children have opportunities to use language frequently. So when kids are constantly exposed to an environment rich in oral language and they interact frequently with adults in that supportive social and emotional environment, they will develop that whole ability for that oral language development, and they will develop that more than children that are lacking those opportunities. So one thing that that Susan Newman had in her book recently, she had in here that if students need to know about 80,000 words in order to be ready for college careers by the end of high school. And realistically, that we can only teach about 300 to 500 words per year. So how do we get there? I mean, if we can't teach these, how do we get there with them getting that many words they need to have understanding? And I don't mean a surface understanding, but really have that depth of understanding of these words. So how do we intentionally, what do we have to do to really build children's vocabulary? So what we found from our research and from others' research, some instructional practices for this base. We need to do these 4 things. Provide a language-rich classroom, and I have some ideas to share with you on that, involving children in shared reading of challenging books, interacting and engaging children in conversations, and providing phonological awareness activities. And we're going to actually do some of those today. So for shared book reading, here's some general ideas. We want kids to be active participants as we read. So when we have a book that we're reading with them, we're actually having questions intermixed, and we have conversation going from that book. Now with predictable books like Brown Bear or Very Hungry Caterpillar, the first time we read through, when it's a rhyming kind of book like that, we read it straight through so the kids can understand the flow and the prosody, that whole, the whole cadence of that language. We want that, but then read it again. Multiple readings of books we have found from our research that really makes a big difference. And kids will want that anyway, right? I mean, they're always saying, can you read that again? Can you read that? My daughter loved Brown Bear when she was little, and she wanted to read that practically every night. She had the book memorized. She loved it. And that's good. That is really good for kids with that rhythm and flow of that language. But then we actually interact with it, ask questions about it. When they have a question, we stop and pause and take the time to look them right in the eye and have a conversation back and forth about it. We want to use the language of math and science as you teach. I have an example of this. I was in one of the university child cares. I had to do something called build rapport. That means I spend time working with the kids, getting to know them in a play type situation before we do any kind of testing of language or anything like that. So I was sitting on the floor with some children that were 3 and 4 years old, and they had blocks there. And the children were just sort of building blocks, and I wasn't saying anything. I was sitting there, and a child said to me, "Hey, can you give me that block?" He pointed to it. Now I have a choice there. I could either just give him the block, or I can say, oh, use the actual name for the shape of that block. And so I said to him, oh, this block that's shaped like a cylinder? And he said, yeah, that block. Okay, here's the cylinder. I can roll it to you. Look, and I rolled the cylinder to him, and he caught it and used it. And then I said, oh, look, there's some more cylinders over here too. Do you need any more? And then he said, oh yeah, I can take, I'll take that cylinder. And he started using that word. It only took me about 3 times of actually using the name of that block, the shape of that block, until he picked that up very quickly. And then we kept using similar words. I kept hearing him using them in a natural play kind of setting. It was child initiated, yes, because it's his activity. He chose to involve me in it. I was also intentionally using math vocabulary with him. Now, I'm not going to test him on cylinder, is it cylinder or not, But he's already gaining, I can already see from that he's gaining that vocabulary. And we need to do that all the time with science words as well. So we have a list of words that are good math vocabulary, science vocabulary that we have available to you. And afterward, we'll tell you how to access that electronically so you can actually print out the list and use these words in these different areas of math and different areas of science. The other thing is you want to use explicit language when you teach. You want to be able to tell kids child-friendly definitions. When they say, which they often do, "What's that?" You can actually say to them what it is and give a quick little child-friendly definition. I would recommend that you would, and I did this when I taught in the classroom, when they would ask me that, I'd write it on a sticky note, that word, and post it on my whiteboard, and I would make a point to say to myself, make sure I keep coming back to that word at some point in the next week, the next month, continually bring it up because they need repeated exposure. So when those situations happen, yes, right then and there, look them in I give them that child-friendly definition, quick, easy, and then revisit it too. And we need to use that explicit language when we teach. We're asking questions that encourage application of concepts from books too. So we're asking questions and connecting the read alouds to actual hands-on activities. So for shared book reading, we want to point out features that are commonly found in informational books. And I have some informational books here. Some of the common features in the informational books would be they have table of contents in the front. They have a glossary in the back. They have an index. And you can show them those differences. You want to show young kids how to use the books to find answers to their specific questions. So when they have one, say, they have a question that relates to science, say, where can we look that up? And then model it for a child. Go get that book. Oh, here, table of contents. You wanted to know what sharks eat. All right. Why do they want to know? Maybe they've been hearing about shark attacks in Florida and the child wants to know, what do sharks eat? Oh, well, they usually don't eat, they don't eat people or anything. And show them what they typically eat, where sharks like to feed. We look it up in your informational text. Use that table of contents. And then explaining new science vocabulary and concepts in a way kids will understand. And reading that book multiple times like we talked about. So, exploratory play, we want kids involved in exploring, examining, using play in a way that they're able to take what we've talked about and just enjoy that and explore it. And guided play, where an adult is helping children explore by play, maybe like small group kind of activities. And quickly, I'll give you an example of this. We had some preschool teachers were doing a unit on marine mammals. And so we were trying to explain to kids what blubber was. This came up in a picture book. We were talking about how these animals can keep warm in the very cold, deep parts of the ocean. And so I had called the Chicago Shed Aquarium and asked their education department, do you have any activities for young children, like 4-year-olds, to help them understand this concept of blubber? And they said yes, it's called the blubber glove. How many of you have heard of a blubber glove? Some of you have? So it's very easy to do, very easy. You take small Ziploc bag, and you have a large Ziploc bag. In a large Ziploc bag, you put Crisco shortening in it. You fill it with shortening. Then you take the small Ziploc bag, put your hand in, and stick it in that bag with the shortening to make a little pouch there. Then you have that ready for the kids, and you have then 2 buckets of ice water. And you say to the kids, you first demonstrate it to, maybe in a small group, and you say, you have a conversation about blubber. Of course, they love the word. You'll hear it, blubber, 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 blubber. They play with that type of word like that. And you'd explain to them that that's how they keep those dolphins and whales keep warm in those cold parts of the ocean, because they have something inside them that's keeping them warm. It's called blubber. It insulates them and keeps their heat in them. And so you say, we're going to try a blubber glove, and what it is, and explain to them, show them, put that small Ziploc bag, put it in the larger, and put their hands in. One hand has the blubber glove, one hand doesn't. And then say, do you feel a difference? And they'll tell you, ooh, this one's really cold, the one without the blubber glove. And say, yes. And they're like, why isn't this one cold? Well, because you have that fat, that insulation around there. That's just like what the blubber does. 4-year-olds can understand that. Then afterward, you set it at a center and you say to the kids, here it is at a center. Have fun with it during free choice time. And I guarantee, we watched this happen in classrooms. The kids would go to that with little groups and they would explain to others what they were doing, what blubber was. And it was just wonderful to see. I wish I had a videotape to show you. I do have some photos here and I'll show you. But they were exploring that deeper in using that knowledge. And I kept hearing that content-rich vocabulary out of them. I was hearing words like dolphin, whale, blubber. I didn't hear insulate, I don't think, but I kept hearing words that were like that. So let's talk specifically about early math. So children, we know, have this intuitive interest in understanding of math concepts, and we see this long before they enter school. They're exploring their worlds, they're sorting, they're classifying, they're comparing, contrasting objects through playful and daily activities. This is from the book Nurturing Knowledge. And you see this, kids with patterns, kids with sorting leaves or sorting rocks or whatever little object that they're looking for. Do you see that kind of thing with the kids? So early math development. Some of the areas of math that are really important to include activities would be numbers and operations, patterns and relationships, measurement, data collection, and data analysis. You can involve children in these areas. Now, are each of these, early math, early science, I mean, we do like whole day workshops that relate specifically where we go into each of these, like if you go to the Schenker site and it says the early math module training, they go into each one of these 4 areas in depth of how to do that in the classroom and ideas. So I'll let you check that out. We're going to focus today on the 3 that are also in the module, but it's problem solving, math vocabulary, and mathematics manipulatives. And these relate to the instructional practices. So when it comes to problem solving, can you involve 3 and 4-year-olds in problem solving? What do you say? Absolutely. How? What are some ways you do this? What do you do in your interactions with kids to help them in this area? Does anyone want to share a little bit about that?
Well, you have manipulatives, you have them in centers.
Yeah. Okay, you place out manipulatives, let the kids explore. It's more that exploratory play. Anything else you do for the problem solving?
Kids are on computers.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of math activities and programs, games.
Yep, those are always, you can, yes. So problem solving really relates to the math area and the science area. So we found the open-ended questions, encouraging young children to come up with a variety of answers and solutions, even in relational type things as well. Incorporating problem solving in the play activities, where we actually put it back on them and ask them, what do you think we should do about that? What do you how is this the same? How is this different? So they can be involved in that. Now with infants and toddlers, they use all their 5 senses to explore the world and solve problems, including taste and smell. Like everything goes in the mouth. And they observe adults and they mimic, and they use trial and error to solve problems. So situations where they're able to actually, they're encouraged to smell something or taste something, or where they're actually trying different things out, where you put toys at their level, you put it down there for them to actually, and you don't do that for them, you're there as a supportive adult, but you allow them to take the time to really try some different solutions for those. With 3-year-olds, remember past observations, experiences, and they apply this to new situations. They're able to try to solve problems through trial and error. They typically use their senses instead of reasoning to solve the problem, And they typically enjoy using their imagination to solve the problem. So they do that. Now, sometimes 3-year-olds can get frustrated because they want the answer and it's not there. And so sometimes they try, that can happen where they get really frustrated, or they might not have the words to communicate that. So that's something to bear in mind too. So we want them to, we can even recall different things they've done before and have conversations with them about it. So when they're attempting something and it reminds you of something that they've tried before and you know they've experienced, to actually say, oh, well, remember when we were out at recess and we had that, we were looking for this or whatever. So you're recalling to them something from the past that you know they can draw upon. That can be helpful for them. So, or having them, you're having them observe, use their senses to it, and then try replaying with them. Well, now what if you did this? What do you think would happen? Now what if you did this? What do you think will happen? So getting them to think about that way, using their imagination. Now 4-year-olds, they often experience more patience than the younger children trying to figure out the different solutions. They start using those abilities to solve problems by reasoning. So that's good. You can have some really great conversations with 4-year-olds. And they continue to develop a larger vocabulary, so they start this negotiating with others and initiating ideas to the whole group. And when they do, we just encourage that. When someone is sharing an idea, it's, yes, why don't we try that? Or how about if we try that? How many of you would like us to try this and see? You can actually do experiments. I know a class that they wanted to know, a child came up with a question. These are 4-year-olds. They had a question about crickets. They wanted to know if crickets chirp more when it's dark or chirp more when it's light. And so you can actually, when it's light outside versus when it's dark. That's sort of interesting conversation. I don't know why they wanted to know, but that's okay. They were curious about that, and they're often curious at this stage. So you can take that curiosity and turn it into an actual scientific experiment. So you could say to them, now you could just give them the answer if you know. That would be an easy way. But if you want to develop problem solving, you could say to them, that's a really interesting question. Hey, everybody. They want to know, do they chirp more when it's dark out or chirp more when it's light out? How are we going to figure this out? And you put it back out to them. And then you can say, well, maybe we should experiment. I can pick up some crickets at the pet store. They're a penny each, 2 cents each. Let's pick up some crickets. And we'll have 2 groups of crickets. We'll have a group of crickets that we keep out in the classroom where it's bright, and we'll put a group of crickets someplace dark. Where could we put the crickets where it's dark? And have the kids generate some ideas and then try it. We'll put crickets here, we'll put crickets here, we'll have some of the kids listening here and listening here and see, try it and experiment like that. And maybe it will work, maybe it won't, but that's okay because it's this whole process. The kids are learning how to problem solve, and then you're writing down what they find from it, and then you're discussing this together. So it's helping that oral language development, the conversations, you're using the science words as you're conducting this experiment, and it's the kids' experiment. It's a blending of these, and it's helping their problem solving. So problem-solving opportunities, you're going to provide daily opportunities for that hands-on exploration. You're inviting kids to use the classroom items in new and creative ways, listening to ideas, suggestions, solutions generated by the children. You're encouraging the children to find their own solutions and try these out. Try them out. And you're sharing books about the book characters facing problems, and you're encouraging children to make predictions. Now, in that situation with the cricket, I would also, to follow that up, since it came from the kids, the experiment came from the kids, I would go to my public library and say to the librarian, can you find me books on crickets? And then they're oftentimes more than willing to help you out. They'll give you a pile of books on crickets, and you want to get a variety of books. You want to get some predictable books, like, we have some authors that there's a book called, Oh, is it something cricket? Carl. Yeah, yeah. What's that cricket? There's a quiet as a cricket, I think it is. Maybe that's it. So you get a book like that to start. You want some narrative type books about crickets. You want to try to get an informational book on crickets. Bring in some books on crickets and have them at a center and say, you know what, we had a question about crickets the other day. I found some really great books. And let them check out the books, and then they'll probably want you to read one, and then you read a book and get this whole conversation about crickets and try to answer this question now that has come up in your classroom. So you're making, getting conversation going, you're facing a problem and they're figuring this out. So math vocabulary for kids. Young children, they're able to learn correct mathematical terminology, and teachers can help by purposefully introducing new words. So you want to think of some words you can purposely introduce, words for counting, names of shapes, language or comparing quantity, comparing length and weight, language related to time, words identifying space and location. Like I said, the website can give you some actual handout with some ideas on those too. You can get it from math books, homemade books, commercial books, math puzzles in the room, number blocks, number lotto, number cards, magnetic numbers and shapes, numbers. You want to have these at the children's eye view, not way up at the top of the board where they can't see them. You want them right down at the level where they can go and explore, experiment, and see, observe. Manipulatives. They're concrete objects, easy to handle by the kids, beads, puzzles, blocks, buttons. You can use natural things too. If the kids love, let's say you have a group of kids that absolutely love dinosaurs or whatever, bring little dinosaur toys in, shells, whatever you have. You can have natural things too, rocks. So I want you to take a second and write down a type of math manipulative that you use with your preschoolers. Maybe if you could write that down. And after you write it down, turn to a neighbor or some people around you and talk about what you use, what type of manipulatives you use, and how do you think that benefits kids in math. So let's take a couple minutes and just chat about manipulatives. Did you all come up with some manipulatives? And good. Okay, do we have you had a little bit of conversation here? Time for that? Can you hear me okay? Oh, good. Okay, so I'll come back behind there. I don't have to stand there then. Great. So what are some of the manipulatives that you had listed? Can we just shout those out? Let's just mention some of those that, and why, how do you think that helps kids with developing mathematic, as far as vocabulary development or math skills, concepts? What do you have? Yes, in the back, pink, red. Mm-hmm. Oh, right, attribute blocks, and then you actually use the words with the children as they use those attribute blocks. Mm-hmm. Right, and they can sort them in multiple ways, by size, by color, by shape, yes, multiple ways. Anyone else? What are a few more? Yes, do you
We have the counting bears, but
right.
There's hundreds of them, dinosaurs, all kinds of things.
Right, whatever the kids are interested in. And they can do those in patterns too. Like you had mentioned colored bears when we were talking privately. Even putting those in different types of patterns, like an A-B pattern, A-B-B, A-B-C. So you can do different patterns. Mm-hmm.
Coins,
Mm-hmm.
dice.
Sure, coins, dice. Sure, anything like that. I used to collect buttons as a child. I had so many buttons that I'd collected, and I'd spend hours at play, at home, just for fun, sorting buttons and arranging them differently. Yeah, you can do that with kids if that's their interest. Any other type of manipulatives you use?
Rocks, did a study on rocks.
Oh, mm-hmm.
They collected a variety of rocks that are centimeters also, but
Mm-hmm.
sort them by, classified by pebbles and boulders and
Mm-hmm.
ones were mediums. And then
Right.
They can sort them by color because
Uh-huh.
depending on what they brought in. And then as another extension, we had the students decide whether they were pebble, medium, or boulder.
Really? That's
That was
great.
very interesting because then they were like, I'm a boulder. So sometimes they go, you're a boulder and I'm a boulder.
Uh-huh.
You're a pebble.
Yeah.
But you know,
true.
when they sorted that out, you could see
Mhm.
smaller students were pebbles,
Mhm.
and larger ones were the boulders.
Right.
Everybody else fit in the middle.
Gets to those
But
higher
it's
level
using
thinking
all the
skills.
words and then you know,
Mhm.
sorting it, and then you talked about patterning with
Uh-huh.
pairs, but you could do that with pebbles. But one other thing is we played tic-tac-toe using
Uh-huh.
pebbles.
Yeah.
You just create a tic-tac-toe board, and then they learn how to
Mm-hmm.
problem solve, negotiate, but
Mhm.
it's all with pebbles, so it's just sort of related to whatever you're doing.
Right. You have a really great idea there too. So whatever topic or theme that you're doing, if you can bring in some manipulatives that fit in with that theme, then you're reinforcing your theme and you're bringing in math skills as well. And it's fun for the kids, you know, setting up a center. One thing you do want to bring in a variety. When I taught kindergarten, I sorted through at the beginning of the year. I was team teaching with another kindergarten teacher, and we sorted through all these different types of manipulatives. Now I have a list of manipulatives also that's on that site I was telling you about that has a listing of different materials. And there's also a math checklist, so you can sort of check your own math pulse and say, am I doing these things that help develop oral language development with children, but it's also hitting a key content area like math. There's a checklist. I can even pull it up and show you what that looks like. And so you can see where are your strengths and what area you might want to add more into your room. But what we would do is we would go through our materials and have those available and have certain materials available to the kids, and then we would throw in a new one and take another out. We'd sort of rotate these in. So the kids have some base pieces that were always there, like we had geo boards. Kids love the geo boards. Now we'd keep those in all the time. We'd keep the blocks all the time. Certain things the kids always really, really loved. We had some Legos, like a Lego table, but then we would also have some new pieces that we would circulate in so the kids would have something fresh and new too. Because they like that new. That makes it exciting for them. Any other manipulatives that you really like to use?
Two
Yes.
things that I use. I was telling her, I use beads.
Oh, beads.
The colorful ones. There's
Yeah.
something about the color, the vibrant
Uh-huh.
colors that make them love to count them. And just-
Yeah.
and the flat bottom makes them
Mhm.
easy to slide, especially when I'm introducing before I introduce how to count money.
Uh-huh.
Because we slide the coins, it makes it easier to count. The beads work really well to slide, and the
Right.
colors, they just love it. And when they're working cooperatively, everybody has different colors, so it's easy to
Uh-huh.
separate them.
Yeah.
And they're just enthralled with the color of the beads.
Yeah. Could you hear back there what she's talking about, using these colored beads that have sort of a flat bottom so they're easy to slide? And she's saying the kids really love the vibrant colors with those beads.
And
So-
also, in terms of vocabulary, I always forget when I'm trying to talk about it, but when you hear the words, how many more,
Right.
how many left,
Uh-huh.
how many in all, those
Right.
are trigger words. So I started
Yes.
calling them lifesavers.
Uh-huh.
Whenever you're dealing with math and you hear those words, they save your life because you know
Yeah.
they're going to make you do one thing, so one or the other, add or
Uh-huh.
subtract. So whenever we're using problem solving and we
Mm-hmm.
have those in number sentences, if those words come up, they have to underline the word,
Uh-huh.
those words. And then I give out lifesavers
Mm-hmm.
because those are lifesavers. Just like a boat has a lifesaver,
Uh-huh.
these are math lifesavers, and
Wow.
you get it immediately every time.
Yes, she brought up a really good point about these words like all together, or words like what is all together, in all. These are math type words and phrases that are very important, and they have a lot of travel time. They're going to hear this in kindergarten, second grade. They're going to hear it up through fourth grade, fifth. I mean, these have a lot of travel time. So you want to introduce words and phrases like that relating specifically to that content area. So that's great. And those beads you can do for patterns, you can use those for sorting. It's fine motor skill development when they're stringing those beads. Yes.
No, not.
You're right.
They're the kind of beads that go inside of. They look like marbles.
Oh, the bigger beads. They're like a.
They go inside of jars, like for decorative purposes.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay,
Not the beads you make.
Yeah.
Decoration. They look like marbles.
Okay, she said they're like the marble kind of beads. I was picturing the beads that you can also use for like stringing as well. They have a hole through, but right, okay.
In Montessori, they do it. My daughter went to Montessori and they string beads, but they're a little big. I mean, but it's, again, fine motor and the
Right.
color piece, 5s, 10s.
Yeah, and if you have in your room a variety of different types of beads like that, using for those different purposes, great. Puzzles are really good too. Susan Newman, who I work with, she always says you want to have puzzles that also have words on them too, because if you can have the words on there too, that's really terrific. So you may have a puzzle about space, and it also has the names of the planets on the puzzle piece as well. Kids really will enjoy that. So it's sort of like doing two things at once. They're learning to see the word, recognize the word, and they're doing the problem solving, the puzzle aspect. A few more, and then we'll move on with our talk on manipulatives. What was that?
We use
Food too?
cereal,
Uh-huh.
things like that, especially with crafting.
Yeah.
We were talking about she uses M&Ms.
Yeah, some foods you have to be careful of depending on where your school is located and the needs within the community. I know there's been some, I've read articles with social justice that sometimes using food can be very sensitive to some communities when a lot of people are struggling with food, like using rice in the rice table versus sand, or you having water. But that is something kids love. I remember when I taught kindergarten, we were having just a snack, the straight pretzels, the straight pretzels that kids will get. This was totally student initiated. A student was at the table and he had the straight pretzels and he was making math problems out of the pretzels. I mean, he was making, he would break the pretzels and he'd make a 7, and he would put the 2 together to make a plus, and then he would break the pretzel and he'd make a 4, and then it was amazing. This was just totally student initiated, and then he was adding that up and he would try to break the pretzel to make his answer. I took a photo of that. I thought that was just so neat, and then of course the other kids saw this and they're like, oh, and they started trying to do some pretzel math, we called it. And we took a photo of it and we had it in our room posted. So that's really fun. So once kids start using those kind of manipulatives and they get excited about it, I like to take a picture of it and then have it there available so the parents can see it too. You have it right by the door where parents can see, or you have it in a newsletter. They get excited. We did that with tangrams. The kids had a good time before on the floor just doing the tangrams, and they were making some amazing shapes. So I took pictures of those and then I put the word underneath it, what they said the shape was. We had a beehive, we had, different shapes like that. So you're using it with math and literacy in that type of activity. But yeah, they're fun, manipulatives. So, okay, let's move on to our next one here. Did you want to flip the slide, Ernie, if you wouldn't mind? Thank you. Whoops, yeah, the little arrow there. So how can they help? They provide a way for children to work in ways to help them understand those deeper math concepts. They open up opportunities to explore, as we talked about. They're active, they're engaging. They can play with those math concepts in a child initiating in a real motivating way. So these are some of those benefits. Some of the specific areas, the blocks can help with your counting, operations, and measurement. Your blocks can help with making and extending patterns, with the shapes. We talked about identifying shapes, sorting, vocabulary development. Puzzles can help with the problem solving, spatial relations, relationing, and then the shapes. Counters, we were talking about some of us here, those counters that have like yellow on one side, red on the other side, those counters. One-to-one correspondence, making and extending patterns, sorting, categorizing. Talk about operations, more than, less than, combining. Shared math activities, board games. Some of the classrooms, some of these games might be too advanced, but some of the kids love those. If they have, some of them have older siblings and they play these games at home, like the game Trouble. There's Candyland, Chutes and Ladders. Dominoes was always a favorite with the kids. Even if they don't try to understand all the counting and how to play dominoes, sometimes they just like to line those up and then make them all go, and counting those dominoes. Those are fun. Math and snacks, baking projects. That's math, using math and science. The measuring, where the kids are actually measuring these. Sharing a mealtime, and you're talking about these math concepts, math words, as you're doing the baking project. So I don't know how many of you have you made the Ziploc bag ice cream with the kids before? That's a really fun activity too. I've done this with many classes, and it's just a lot of fun. How many of you haven't heard of this before, the Ziploc bag ice cream? Some of you haven't. You basically take a small Ziploc bag and you pour in, I think it's like a half a cup of milk, like a teaspoon vanilla. You add a little bit of sugar. I'm not sure how much you add in sugar, so it's basically just milk, vanilla, sugar in the Ziploc bag, small one, seal it up tight, put it inside a large Ziploc bag, freezer bag that has crushed ice and a little bit of salt. And then you zip it up. You have to make sure the little bag inside is zipped really tight. And then the kids should wear mittens because it does get cold. And have them jump, 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 shake, 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 shake. And then it becomes ice cream. And the kids truly do enjoy. This is a good summertime kind of activity outside if possible, because the bag, it will sort of get drippy. But when you take the little bag out and there's ice cream in there, you want to wipe the top, because if not, salt might drip into the ice cream and that doesn't taste really that great. But the kids love it. It's a good activity. It will produce sort of brain freeze though, and the kids, if they eat it too fast, because it gets super, super cold. But kids love that. But you can use those math, you can use the measuring type language and math language with that activity. And then the shared music. So what happens when you sing counting songs at group time, you make the natural connection between music and math. And our research shows there is an amazing connection between music and math. And a lot of our really good mathematicians in this world are also musicians. There's this link. So involving the kids in music, and that's something we do a lot in our level, preschool anyway. But you can bring those math concepts and have the kids clapping, and as they're doing the singing or jumping, or you can even do patterns on drums. I used to live in Kenya, and they had these wonderful drums made out of cow hide, and they had like a little rock inside there, and they make them right in the different communities. And I bought one and brought it back, and I used it for years in my kindergarten classroom, and the kids loved it. And I picked up some more at our Ann Arbor Art Fair, some drums, and you can beat out a pattern at the drum and then have the kids imitate that pattern back to you. You can do a lot of drum activities, sharing the math. So if we have time, do we want to sing a math song? Yes? No? Okay, what math songs have you had for your class? What have you done? Songs where you've brought math into the class. Do you have a song that involves counting or patterns or what?
Raffy does 5 Little Ducks.
5 little ducks went out to play. That one? Yeah. And have the kids can actually, they enjoy this where they come right up front and they are the ducks, and then have the duck go away, and then there are 4. And you have to count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 little ducks went out one day over the meadow and far away. That one? Sure. What other math songs have you had? Yeah? Yeah. 5 little monkeys jumping on the, we know this one. Let's say this one. I'm not solo. 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. Mama called the doctor and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. 4 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off, then bumped her head. Mom called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. Now how many? 3 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. Mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. 2 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. Mother called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. 1 little monkey jumping on the bed. He fell off and bumped his head. Mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. Now some versions have mama jumping on the bed, right? So that's the idea. I mean, whatever your math concept is that you're really wanting to bring into the room, find a song. Now, I like to go to Everything Preschool website. You just put in on Google, Everything Preschool. I don't know how many of you know about that, but it's great. You put in Everything Preschool, and it pulls up the website, and it says themes, and it says lessons, and you can click on there and it gives you a whole list in alphabetical order of a lot of common preschool themes. And you could look on there and it says circus theme. You click on circus and then it gives you literacy ideas. It gives you actual specific picture books. It gives you science ideas. It will give you math links and ideas. It will give you art type of extension activities. So, I mean, it's a really great resource, and they give you fun chants and songs and finger plays that you can do relating to pretty much any topic or theme that you have. I've used that quite a lot. So, and I use some of those ideas even within the module, the early math module there. So technology, students are living in this age of this new media, using games to teach math concepts that support students' needs, that are engaging and interacting instruction. So one thing we do know from our research, and a lot of this, I remember Susan Newman years ago, she did a whole study on this whole education of media and use. The one thing that has come out from the educational media, when they have these debates like, is Sesame Street really good? Is it good to use the computer with kids, having them sit for extended periods of time using this? Is it good for their development or not? One of the things they have found is it's all about the interaction with the adults as the child's using it. So, and it's also, you have to think about when they're spending that time sitting, how much time is being taken away from the development in other areas as well. Fine motor, gross motor, and this. So, but they have found that the interaction makes a major difference. So if an adult is sitting with the child who's on the iPad and you're talking about what they're doing and you're interacting during it, it has a much greater benefit. So we have to be careful on that, that we're balancing that out and that we're doing a lot of that rich conversation and interaction during the time they're using the technology, new types of technology. But the reality is the kids are coming in knowing how to use it. And there are some excellent type apps that you can get that have a lot of this kind of interaction. And if you're doing it with them, or an adult is with them, and you're talking about it and working on it, it can be beneficial. Did someone have a comment? Yeah.
As a student myself, I grew up, and my teachers were therapists.
Mhm.
So, I had to go to therapy. So I started teaching the way they taught me.
Okay.
So I don't think that I teach as a normal, or an average teacher would teach. And I start using some of the therapy methods they use. So whenever I'm teaching a lesson, in order to make sure everyone is engaged, and no matter what their learning style is, you got to kind of pull all of these concepts, whether it's a concept of technology, whether it's actual movement, whether it's looking at a video, whether it's singing, whether it's drawing something, or using shaving cream or something. And sometimes you don't get through a whole lesson because you're trying to engage everybody's style.
Right. Yeah. That whole mixed modality part. Yeah. Yeah. So that whole balance, you're saying, and different, because we're wired differently, and kids are coming in with different ways they learn, and their different interest levels in this and that. One lesson that's very auditory for one may be very beneficial, and another child who's very kinesthetic, it won't be as beneficial to them. So you're right, we have to balance those type forms out. And some kids love the technology, and other kids, they would rather do something totally different than that. So you're right, that whole balancing of it. And knowing our kids, knowing them, to know what is beneficial for them, but exposing them to all of that too, as well, in a way. It is a balancing act, isn't it? Any other comments on that? When I taught kindergarten, I actually had a list by the computer, and it was a free choice situation. We had free choice time. The kids could go, they would sign their name, and then we had a timer. They would set the timer so other children had a chance, because I had some that absolutely loved the computer, would spend their whole choice time at the computer. And I did that as a way so it was very clear, here are the expectations. We want to share our technology with everyone. And they would have to learn how to manage themselves on that. So they would be responsible. They'd have to set it, and they would have to sign their name, and then they would have to select another center. So, that worked for us. Okay, so any conversations about early math? We wanted to give you a chance to chat about it. Is there something else that you think that you would like us to talk about concerning math? Either vocabulary development, or using picture books. I know we didn't have time to really dig into the specifics as far as picture books, but now there are a lot of picture books that are counting books. There are books that have patterns, and I know this is true. I developed a lesson on patterns, a whole unit on patterns, and I found a number of recent books that I was able to do actually a text set where you have a predictable book, the narrative, and the informational book on patterns. And then I had items in there for the kids to create different patterns out of we had some small cars that were colored cars they could use for the patterns. We had some different materials from like the scrap box. It's a place in Ann Arbor that has a lot of materials that are left over that companies didn't want, and you could bring that in, and there were little zigzaggy type things, and there were little different textured things they could create patterns with. We had some open-ended activities. So, and there were probably 7 books that I was able to bring in from the library, math-related books. Now, I know Washington, D.C., this area, your libraries are very supportive. I was here in the spring for the Head Start National Convention, and I wanted to bring in about 90 books, children's books. I was doing a seminar that it was particularly about using books. picture books with kids on different topics. So what I did is I thought, I don't want to haul 90 books from Michigan here, maybe your local library. So I called the Chevy Chase branch of Washington, D.C. area, explained the situation, and they were so helpful. I came in with my theme topics. I had some book ideas. They pulled the books for me. They let me borrow like 90 some books, these different topics that I brought into the conference to use for the talk. I've done this in St. Louis. We were there. I was there with the Shanker Institute to do some training with, was it Head Start or was it mostly just the whole early?
There was pre-K classrooms.
All, right?
Yes, it was public schools.
Yeah, public schools, early childhood program, and I called up the St. Louis Public Library right downtown, and I explained the same thing, and they were more than, I had bins of books that we brought in for our professional development. So I don't know where you're from, your particular library, but I think if you went there and you really wanted some math, you had some math areas like patterns, or you wanted to explore some areas of math or science, particularly science, and you say to your librarian, here's what I have in mind, you have some picture books for young children on this, they're more than willing to help you. Not only that, but St. Louis, I don't know where your city is, but St. Louis, they actually had pre-prepared bins all ready for me. And they had a number of topic areas, and the teachers did not even know they existed. They said, oh yeah, the teachers here can check these out free in St. Louis if they're teaching in the St. Louis district. And when I shared this with the public school teachers, many of them didn't even know that was available to them, and I gave them a list of all their different themes, topics. They had boxes all prepared, and they had some hands-on manipulatives in those boxes as well. Clocks, okay, there's another one for math. If you're doing a unit on time, you want to do, of course you can do those, emerge that throughout that sort of time concepts, but if they had picture books relating to time, they had little different types of clocks in there. They had even some timers, like sand timers. So they had some things you could explore at a center. So you could take that whole bin and set up a center with those provided from the library and use that. Yes, in the back.
I'm sorry, I came in late, so I'm not sure if you touched on it.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to attend a professional development called Number Talks.
Uh-huh.
With the conversations. And one of the things the presenter, Jen, she's a professor at university, however she conducts the professional development. They started at an early age, where the students, you start as basic as what's like flashcards, and so you let them tell you how many items do you see, how can you improve them, and then you have them talk about what they see with each other, and then they present their findings, and the teacher, she scripts what they write on the board, and what it starts to do over time. We were able to see a first grade class, the kindergarten, first grade, all the way up to 5th grade. They were able to have those conversations based on the building when they were multiplying, like knowing the base. Say you're multiplying, you should know that 35, say 350 times, say 4, and you know in your head that 350 times a certain number, or 35 times that number is such and such. You break it down. So like 120 times 4, you break the 12 down, break the 4 down. Like that's how they're teaching. They taught them from an early age to sort of see that if 12 times 10 is 120, then you're multiplying 2 numbers. You already know it has to be higher than such and such. So it's just changing the conversation, the way in which you start, I should say, having those conversations from an early age.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they use manipulatives, but it's not a whole lot of bells and whistles. It's just the basic stuff, and then having them explore.
Yeah.
And they bend the vocabulary in the way in which they express themselves. It's in line with what's expected in terms of the math vocabulary words.
Yeah. Well, what I hear you saying, what really stands out to me is conversations. So you have a lot of oral language wrapping around this content area, which, like we have talked about, is really essential. And it's also exposing the kids at a young age to this content vocabulary that they're, like I said, will have a lot of travel time. They're going to continue hearing this and deepening their understanding as they go more and more and more with those experiences. It's giving them many different experiences with the same type words in new ways, continually building. And the other thing I heard you say had to do with, what was it? So it was the conversations, it was exposing kids to the vocabulary, it sounds like it's using the manipulatives in a way that fits into that context of what is happening there within those conversations. So it's using it and a benefit that way, and it's constantly revisiting as they go up those conversations. So I don't know enough about that particular approach, but it sounds like it's really effective because it's containing some of those similar elements to it as well. So that's great. What is the name of that again? Number Talks. I'll check into that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, we need to move on to some science, and we'll have some things that are just a little bit different added into science. So it says scientific knowledge is cumulative, like we were talking about even with the math. To learn new things, you must build on what you already know. So it's important that your child starts learning early. So if we start giving them that word, the vocabulary, those key concepts early, that helps them as they go through. But our way is play-based. So we want play as a big part of it. Science, these are 3 key areas and those modules that you can check out at the Schenker Institute website. They're in physical science, life science, earth science. And there are tons of activities within those modules. I mean, this is, like I said, a whole day just with these you could explore deeper. So we're going to focus on the scientific inquiry, the science vocabulary, and science exploration. So a scientific inquiry, it involves using the scientific processes to observe, ask questions, study a particular problem or question, gather the data, analyze the results, draw conclusions, and communicate information. So if you can remember, if you just sort of memorize the key points of scientific inquiry, you can do this with practically every single unit or topic you do with your preschoolers. If you say, I'm going to use the word observe, start that right out. Even with 3-year-olds, start the year out and you teach them in a very friendly, child-friendly way. Observe means you're going to take your senses, your eyes and your ears. You're going to look and observe. You're going to look at this. You're going to use your eyes and look at this. You're observing, and you give them a little definition of observe, and then use that word instead of the word look. What do you observe about this? You're using that word with them, asking questions, having the kids study a problem or question, like we talked about the crickets. A question comes up, write out their question. That's a really good question. Let's look into this. Gathering the information, gather that, and then have them maybe even do a simple graph, like a bar graph, with the information so they can see that, and then draw conclusions from that, and you're going to communicate it to someone out in the community, someone. Maybe you're going to share it with the classroom next door, or share it with their parents, something they found. So inquiry, it's one of the main goals of science education. We're answering questions. We're digging into questions. So here we go. It involves hypothesis, predictions, testing your predictions. We can use predictions even when we're reading a story to the kids, a storybook. What do you predict will happen next? Or what do you predict will happen tomorrow when snow's covering the street? What do you predict will happen when? So you can use that word. You can use the word observe. You can use the word, what do you conclude from this? Using these words with the kids. So you're having them observe, asking questions based on what they observe, finding out what others have discovered. That's when you can bring in the books. Say, what do other people think about this? Making predictions, testing predictions, gathering and recording their data, analyzing it, drawing conclusions and communicating. Now I have to say, sometimes you'll read books that, you read a picture book, you're reading it to the kids, and it's maybe has to do with insects or planets or something, and it gives information. And then you read the next book, and it gives information that's different. Now they both of them, sometimes they're giving opposing information, and the kids will say, wait a minute, how come that said this, and how come this says this? Like this book says that Pluto is the 9th planet, and this one says Pluto's not a planet. What do you do with that? When the kids have that dilemma, what do you do? Yeah, that's great. Let's research it. We've got to find out. I wonder why this book says this and this book says this. So you put it back out at the kids. What are we going to do to find out what really is true here? Well, we could look at the copyright in the book. This says, see that little C there? And tell the kids, say, this was published in like 1998. And at that point, scientists thought that Pluto still was a planet. And look at this one's published in 2014. That was just last year. And this one, so this has the new information added in it, and this one has the old information. So as we know as scientists, as you continue to get more information, sometimes that changes what we thought before. So you can have those conversations with the kids. You could also say, hey, wait a minute. NASA, now that website, they have a site on the NASA site for kids. Let's go look at what NASA says, because they're the ones that are they're made up of the astronauts and people that are studying all of the latest research with these higher powered telescopes. And then some kid will say, what's a telescope? A telescope! Let's look up what a telescope, tell them what a telescope is. That helps us know, find out in a clearer way what the planets look like or the stars look like. So those are great opportunities that come up like that. Integrating the science and literacy. So the reading aloud of science information, books, magazines, websites, like NASA, they provide background knowledge. Developmental writing can capture their observations for recording data. Kids can have little science notebooks. Took a field trip with the kids to botanical gardens, and I made little observation recording pads for the kids. And I had them go around, and they could either sketch pictures of plants, their favorite plant in the garden area, the observatory. I had brought some watercolor. They could watercolor their picture if they wanted while they were there. And it was really fun to see all these kids sitting on the floors of the observatory with their little books by their favorite plant. And they were capturing that. So it's important that the kids can do that and engaging them in conversations using that new science vocabulary. So I think we're going to move on with this. We were going to talk about how to extend this to the curiosity and questions generated by preschoolers, but I think we already chatted a little bit about it. So we're going to move forward. So science words. Here are some great words to consider. Words used in scientific inquiry, like observe, predict. Names for tools used in science. I mean, there's so many tools used in science. Microscopes, beakers, you have, like I said, telescope, you have, so many words used for tools. Words for detailed observations, descriptive words for the properties of different objects, words with science activities that you do. And then I go into some specifics here. We have like science inquiry words, and we've already talked about this. But here they are again, predict, observe. And let's see, we can keep going here. We have beaker, magnifying glass, balance, goggles, measuring tape. These are all science words we're using. Detailed, look, observe, scent, aroma, feel, listen, savor, taste buds, near, far. So these are all words we use in science. Rough, smooth, sparkly, round, bitter, salty, bitter, sweet, sour, stench, reek, tang, odoriferous. So science vocabulary, like when you're comparing, contrasting, this is so important in science. Mix, measure, combine, early, later, but the compare, contrast, that is really excellent for higher level thinking skills. I often do this with picture cards. If you're doing a unit on insects, let's say, you can go to pull off, even from the internet, photos of different insects, and also pull off some photos that are not insects, like a centipede or a spider, or you pull off some others that are not insects. So you teach the insects first. So an insect has 6 legs, 3 body parts, antennae. So you tell them what the characteristics are of an insect and show them the picture cards that they fit into this. A fly has 6 legs. Here they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. An ant. Is an ant an insect? Does it have 6 legs? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does it have 3 body parts? Yes. Does it have, so you have these key characteristics of insects, and then after they're really solid in what the key characteristics, you bring in a spider and you say, show them the picture card and say, is this an insect? And let them tell you back. They'll tell you, no, that can't be, it has 8 legs. How about a centipede? Is this an insect? And then put some insects in there too that they're not used to, like maybe you haven't talked about a dragonfly. Bring in the dragonfly. Is this an insect? And they can compare, contrast, and once they're comfortable with that, put the whole pile of cards on the floor and say, okay, sort them. And let them put all the ones that are insects here and all the ones that are not insects here, and then have them do that activity. Now you can really help them develop those higher level thinking skills when you do that. The same thing with pets. You have a pet unit. Talk about what are the characteristics that make this a pet and make these animals not pets, like a bear or something, or a zebra. How come that's not considered a pet? Talk about that, and then have a conversation about what about a pig? What do you think? Is a pig a pet, or is a pig not a pet? Yeah? Mm-hmm. A pig could be a pet. So it's sort of in the middle, because a pig, like a pot-bellied pig, that can be a pet. I mean, many of us don't have a pig running around our house, but it could be if it's a pot-bellied pig. But then you have like a wild boar, of course, that's not a pet. So then you have these conversations. Same thing with the human body. Bring in something tricky like blood. Is blood a body part? Now that can throw kids, because they're like, wait a minute, okay, well, it's in the body, but it's not attached to the body. It's not, so you have these conversations. Healthy food unit, pizza. Ooh, is pizza healthy food or not? What do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah? Some say it has your food groups in there. And some will say, well, no, it's not. And then you have to have them discuss why or why not. Defend it here. Why do you say it is? Why do you say it's not? And have this conversation going. That's so good for kids, because they're doing this compare, contrast. It's excellent for those higher level skills. Science words, physical science, life science, earth science. That page I said that you can get access to has a whole list in each of these areas. Life science, good words for that. Earth science for physical science. So I'll let you access that if you would like that. Counting words, comparing, measuring, classifying. Oh, I typically thought they're math words, but they're also used in science. Sometimes you have this overlap of these words. Science, homemade science books, text sets. I have some text sets here. Science magazines, puzzles, cards. Here's how you do a text set. So these all relate to insects. I chose a book. These are from my public library, by the way, all of them. I chose a book that's I Love Bugs. This is a book to introduce your unit It's fun. I love all bugs, big and small bugs. I love springy, jumpy, leapy bugs and slimy, crawly, creepy bugs. So you can hear the cadence, the rhyming, it's a predictable kind of book. It gets kids thinking about these little outside creatures here, and then you can start bringing in some key characteristics. And then you get into a book like The Bumblebee Queen. This is a narrative book. It's a story, but it has some of these key concepts of a particular insect. And you can have conversations about how do you know this bug is an insect or not? So you can start telling them those key characteristics of insects in these books. Then you have a book like The Bug Safari. This is a narrative story. But it also talks about, this starts bringing in the key concepts. This book actually says insects have 6 legs, 3 body parts, and it starts giving you some good information about insects in particular. And then you work your way up to, this is a beginning informational book. It starts giving some actual facts. Now, it doesn't have all the features of an informational text yet. This one does. But it has some of them. It has some important words pulled out. You might see some bolded, important vocabulary. But this starts giving some information like there are many kinds of insects living all around us. Ants are insects, so are crickets and mosquitoes, so are butterflies and bees. No, they already know this because they've been hearing it all along. And then insects come in many shapes, sizes, and colors. And then it says, count its legs, count how many body parts make up its body. And then it tells you right in here. And then here we go, an informational text. This one actually has all the features. It has a table of contents, and it has, and you just read the main part here, and the kids can explore the separate little insects that they're interested in. What is not an insect? There we go, that's the compare contrast, and it tells you how to tell the difference. And this has all those features of an informational text, an early informational text. It talks about camouflage, okay? And then it has a glossary and index, so it does. Ooh. So how do we know what content-related words are important? So I think we'll keep moving on to that because we talked a little bit about that. If you look at, these are just the common kindergarten state standards. You have Missouri for the plant unit, Michigan, California, Indiana. I could have gone through all these other states, and you're going to see basically the same kind of thing for plants. It's comparing the structure plants. You have to know stem, leaves, flowers, seeds, roots. They almost all say the common words like stem, leaf, root, things like that. So those are important words. So you know from that, if you're doing a plant unit, make sure you include this type of vocabulary with it. So I check the standards, Common Core, or check state or district standards for your topic you're doing, and see what are the key words that keep coming up, what are the key concepts, because kids need to know that. That's going to go all the way through. It's going to have a lot of travel time. So my keywords for a pet topic, my keywords might be these specific words. Support words might be aquarium, cage, diet, fur, groom, litter, veterinarian. Challenge words might be giraffe, snake, spider, turtle. Kids will have conversations like snake. Is snake a pet or not a pet? There we go. It's like pig. You have to talk about that. Spider, okay. So 5 teaching sequence, you want to identify 2 or 3 exemplars for your topic. For insects, I would choose an ant because almost all the kids have an experience with ants at some point. Or like pets, oftentimes the one you're using sort of as your first example would be one they're familiar with. It might be a dog for pets because that's one of the most common pets. And then you're going to provide a child-friendly definition, description, and explanation of new words. So you just want simple, clear definitions of your keywords. And you want to give children many opportunities to be exposed to these words over and over again. Distributed review of these and rereading these kind of books. And then you want to monitor their progress by maybe using the picture cards and seeing, do they know these concepts yet in these words or not? And if they don't, you find out other fun ways they can explore these words. So text sets, it's a collection of these different genres that support our vocabulary teaching sequence, and they focus on a particular concept or topic. And this would be for like marine animals. Hole at the bottom of the sea, that's like a song. A hole, there's a hole at the bottom of the sea. It's like a song kind of. And then The Secret Seahorse, A Visit to the Aquarium. These are narrative books. And then you get into your informational books, Baby Animals, Ocean of Animals. So you're gradually scaffolding to help kids gain the concepts and the vocabulary. It's like a natural, built-in type of scaffolding. So then you start with a sort of predictable book, like I said, more of a rhyming book, introduce the storybooks and narratives, and then you build them up to informational books. Now, Common Core is expecting kids by 6th grade to have a really good handle on reading informational text and comprehending it. It's expected through the Common Core. So we've got to start now in preschool to get them familiar with the vocabulary and the concepts and get them comfortable with informational texts. So this really helps, this process. So, and then developing a science area, it's a part of your room that's set aside for engaging children in exploring science concepts. It doesn't have to be complicated. We've worked with urban areas where their class size may be pretty tight and their storage is pretty tight. But we've gone in before, I've gone into rooms and we've together brainstormed what we could do. And it's amazing. Sometimes it's between a file cabinet and a file cabinet, and you have a little table, small table, and you put some science posters, you have some materials in this little space, and you're even using the file cabinets with magnetic type pieces and things you can move around. But you don't need a huge area. You can even use a small space for a science area. And I also have ideas for developing a science area that you can have access to as well on the flash drive that they're putting up. Science is a passionate quest to understand how our world works, and to promote scientific thinking, children need a supportive environment in which they can exercise this passion of discovery. I love that quote, that passion of discovery. So how do we create that supportive environment for that passion of discovery with kids? And we need sometimes a science area set aside that you rotate materials at that follow your topic or theme can be really motivational for kids. So the benefits, it helps them develop new questions to explore. It allows them to experiment with science ideas and concepts, provides opportunity to investigate their own science interests at a deeper level, and they can practice using science tools. Now, it can be simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. We were doing our insect unit. I was able to bring in ant farms. Of course, you have to secure those because sometimes kids will want to open those up and like shake them up. No. You have to secure that, tape it around, tape it shut. But we had an ant farm. I brought into a number of classrooms, I had ant farms, and the kids, we had it at the center, and it had a magnifying glass. It had some things, journals for the kids to record their discoveries, and the kids loved it. They would take those magnifying glasses and just stare and enjoy those ants, and they're really fun to watch. How many of you ever spent time looking at an ant farm? They're intriguing, they're almost hypnotizing. Just stare at the little tunnels and explore what these ants are doing, and you put some grape jelly in there and watch what they do with it. It's just really amazing. But isn't that fun? Yeah, fish tank. Even plant unit, you bring in a variety of plants. You bring in a cactus, you bring in a fern. I had a Venus flytrap in there. The kids love that. You have different types of plants. Now the cactus, just a warning, you have to tell the kids, this could hurt, you know, if you touch it because of those spines on there. One teacher made us put it in plastic because she was just sure the kids would hurt themselves on it. But, you know, you have to tell them, and that's part of them realizing too, why is it like that? Why do you think the cactus has these spiny things? What's the purpose of it? And then you can explore why. It's really to conserve water in a very dry area where it's from. But those kind of questions come up, and it doesn't have to be complicated, but it's exciting for kids to have a science area where they can explore and come up with their questions too. Some could include some literacy materials. It could include hands-on scientific experiments, puzzles, manipulatives. These are all things that could be included. You have to make sure it's an area that can, children can conduct active hands-on exploration, variety of age-appropriate materials, rotating your materials regularly so the kids aren't bored with it, and you can model the use of it for the kids like I did with that blubber activity. Sometimes you can model it during a small group time and then have it available for them to explore further. That's what I like to do with that. Science and snacks, like I said with the math, it's chemistry in action. That's what cooking is, and you can explain why the cookie or why the bread dough rises. What's happening there? Why is the popcorn, why does it pop? Ask those questions and have the kids listen to it, and then they talk about why that is, that happens scientifically. And then sharing music. Just like the math, you can share some of these concepts through music and through drama too. There's something called Singing Songs for Science, and if you want to write that down, it's a CD you can buy. You can go, and it's called Singing Songs for Science, and they have, this is great for young children, and it has many of the math concepts, like the water cycle song. They have the kids, it goes like, and they actually can go, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and then they have to go like the water cycle song. It's really fun. So it's called Singing Songs for Science. That's a good one. And then we have just a minute here. Any other conversations about early science? Is there something that we didn't address that you would like to share or you would like to ask? I'm sorry, couldn't hear you. How about signs? Yeah, science. Is there anything in particular about science that you would like to share with us? Either something you've done with your kids or a question that you have you would like us to talk about further? Have you done text sets? Have you used those with kids at all? Yeah?
In all the studies that we do, since I'm in preschool, and all this academics are based around studies.
Uh-huh.
You call them themes. And everything, you have all the books, so we don't call them text sets.
Uh-huh.
We just bring in the books and
Yeah.
we go through them, and depending on the questions from the students,
Uh-huh.
which books are you going to pick up? But there's always the fun books that you have to throw in there as opposed to the research books. They have, they stay interested in it, but most of the kids gravitate towards the informational text because that's where the pictures are and that's where they
Right.
see what it is, and then they can compare.
Uh-huh.
Do probably 8 weeks on insects
Uh-huh.
or bugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we do compare and contrast, just like you were doing, like you said. So they're interesting, but yeah, you have to have all the backup on books because that's
You do.
really where they're going to see. Because to look it up on a computer is going to be harder for them to do. We're not allowed that much time on the computer.
Yeah. Some of the classes now do have, they have computer type systems now where they can easily pull up photos, pull up things like smart boards they have in their rooms. I have been in rooms recently where they have that, and I've watched students, some of my pre-service teachers who are very comfortable with technology, putting some of these images on PowerPoint and then hooking it into the smartboard system and using it just by they touch it and it comes bigger, and they can do a lot with it where they're giving a lot of visual images to kids during those kind of conversations. But yeah, and right from textbooks too. So that's great. Yeah, so it sounds like
I was just going to say one thing about text sets, which there hasn't been that much attention to the research around the use of text sets, but there are some really interesting things that are out there. Marilyn Adams talks about it in the introduction section to the literacy ladders. But there is now a lot of brain science that is showing that children develop knowledge networks, basically, that reading about the same topic, sharks, for example, from different perspectives, that they are able to attach different nuanced meanings from the different books, different associations of language. When they will see something about sea urchins, they have a context years later to put it into, because they have a broad, deep knowledge of marine biology, but starting with sharks, and that is able to link out.
Yes.
And the use of text sets, rather than just a smattering of information about different interesting topics, one after the other,
Right.
that if they're networked together, that it provides a much stronger foundation for oral language acquisition.
it's sort of like it helps with memory, sparking their memory. It's almost like helping them organize. It's almost like file folders in their mind of these different categories, so when new information comes, they can gain that new information at a quicker pace, quicker rate, because it's organized already in their mind. It's like setting that organization system for them. Yeah.
Can you recommend a resource for the level text? Say like you're reading on sounds.
Uh-huh.
You have various reading levels in your classroom. One of them wants to read about sounds. Can you recommend a resource?
Oh, for the leveled readers on that?
Generally, if I wanted to buy any
Yeah. I know I have looked through, and I don't know if they have it here, but I have looked through at different conferences, conference materials, like books that have of the different curriculum out there. Sometimes you can actually buy sets that have a mixture of the fiction and nonfiction in them, and you can buy some leveled readers that relate to that. I know I've looked through some like Scott Forsman in this. They have actual books already in sets like that, different levels.
the only one I know that is part of that curriculum.
Yeah, I know Scholastic has some. Scholastic has some of that too. I've looked through some of their teacher resources. They do have that, and I know Follett Book Company is coming out with that. They're actually right now publishing some of Susan's work in the themes like this, based on like text sets. They're doing that right now, as I speak, because they're sending me some of the materials to look through about that. So I know that and I have looked, there are some already out there that they're used often in kindergarten, first grade, like second grade classrooms. And some of the material then they have is leveled readers. You can even go in now. I picked some up for our school in River Rouge we're working with. I've gone into Barnes and Noble, and they'll have books that are leveled readers. So you can get them from early level reading all the way up that are in the same type of theme. So like if you're doing a unit on marine animals, there are some that relates to maybe the dolphin, or I know there's some on space I picked it up this spring, so I know they have them there. But I don't have a list or anything made up of recommendations. Sorry. So, but those are great resources. I remember 20 years ago, we could hardly even find good informational texts for pre-K. So we've come a long way, I know on that. But I think our time is just about out here. Yeah, it's out. So we might have to. I just wanted us at the last slides were basically looking, well, what about other areas? I mean, our focus was math and science here. But what about social studies? Or what about other areas like we have like within the community? How can we bring in other content areas, the same thing? Some of these same principles can still apply. Picking out key vocabulary, picking out key concepts. We talked a little bit about technology, incorporating technology. So we want to think about what can we apply to our work with young children that promote oral language through these same principles. So you might want to, when you go back to your room, sort of jot down some ideas of what you can take with you from here to actually apply in those two areas of math and science, and how can we extend it to even areas like social studies. So anyway, that's basically it. Any further questions, or are we okay? All right, thank you so much for letting me come speak. Feel free to talk with me too. Thanks.